Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the September 13th meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission. I would like everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like it noted that all commissioners are present. For the record, could we have staff introduction, please?
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning and Development.
Cody Morton, the Attorney for the Planning Commission.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Eric Poche, Parish Planner.
Lance Brock, Zoning Official.
Sean Sherrow, Ascension Parish Review Agency. All right, next item number 5 on the agenda is the chairman's comments. The chair does not have any comments at this time. However, there are two important matters that are kind of off the beaten trail that we're going to talk about tonight. The first comes in item number 6, and then that's adopting Robert's Rules of Order, and the second is going to come down in item number 12, and that's a discussion of the master use plan proposal, an update on that. So moving on to item number 6, general business, adopting Robert's Rules of Order by the commission. After recent events, it seems pretty clear, I think, for us, or it behooves us to have some set rules of governance. I think the council, to my knowledge, uses Robert's Rules of Orders for governing their meetings, and so I think we should adopt that as well. I think each of you have received a proposal from Chairman Dawson concerning that, and I'd ask for a motion regarding that.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Furman, second by Mr. Dumas. Any discussion on that? Any opposition?
I'd just like to point, if y'all want to add any special rules, to go ahead and make that in your motion, and that way we'll draft up a resolution to that effect after.
I was going to ask, just as a point of clarity, that to Commissioner Furman, if his motion included the special rule as well.
Special rule for?
The special rule that states that a majority vote is defined as 50% of the quorum.
Oh, yes. Yes, I'd like to include that.
Okay. Can we need to read that into make sure that we're clear on that.
So,
That this commission adopt Robert's Rules of Order.
yeah, once you read this
And with a majority of vote is defined as 50% of a quorum or more than 50% of members voting, whichever is greater.
So we have a clarified motion by Mr. Furman, second by Mr. Dumas. Any further discussion?
Got a question. Sorry, I've got a, so if we have 5 members, well, I guess it wouldn't be 5, it'd be, just trying to figure out how that would work, because this is the first time I'm seeing this right now, is if you have 5 members present and you've got, well, I guess a 3-2, if you go 2-2.
3 would be a majority.
Okay, so if it's, and 4, you can't have one. So 6, if you have 6 members present, let's say, then you need
A majority, which would be 4.
Okay.
3 would not carry the vote. Yes, sir.
no, that would, because if the chairman doesn't vote, then and you only have 5,
Well,
so 3 to 2
Well,
would be.
that's what I'm saying, but it says.
Depends on who's voting, yeah.
Well, but it says a quorum, 50% of a quorum or more than 50% of voting. So if you have 6 present, so your quorum would be 3, 4.
No,
The
your
quorum
quorum
does
is
not
always
change.
going to be a majority of the members of the board itself.
Yeah, so
So you're
4
gonna have
makes
to
a
have
quorum.
At least 4 to have a quorum.
So you always have to have 4. So if you have 6 members present and you go
If it's 3-3,
3-3, then
then the motion does not carry. Correct?
Correct. Unless somebody abstains,
Right.
then you have to deal with it that way.
Suppose you had 5, or if you had
But if you have 6 members, which is a quorum, okay, you only have 5 people voting, because whoever's acting chair would not vote.
so.
Well, that's one of the things I think that comes up in Robert's Rules of
Robert's
Order.
Rules of Order, and I'm not a parliamentarian, but from what I understand, y'all are considered a small board, so the chairman is allowed to vote if he chooses to vote. Just in large boards, the chairman is not allowed to vote. I think the 15 members is the threshold number on it.
So,
okay.
so then you wouldn't, I guess what I was trying to think, and that's where it hit. So if it had been a 3-2 where the chairman wouldn't have voted, even if it was 3-2 in favor, the motion still fails because you need to have 4 votes always. That's your minimum.
I mean, Steve, let me
Under
see that.
this, it says
Not even-
50% of a
Only
quorum.
6 are present.
Well, but a quorum is,
4 in our stance.
so it's 50% of a quorum, so it'd be 2.
Well, it's whichever's
So-
greater.
But it says of members voting.
Well, it's an or, it's 50% of a
Yeah.
quorum or members voting.
Whichever is greater.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so it would go back to the quorum in that case because it's a greater number of people.
And then it'd be up to the chairman to decide if he's going to vote or not.
Okay. All right,
Correct,
so-
Cody?
That's correct.
Do we have any special rules that dictate when the chairman can vote, or a vice chairman, or?
We don't have any rules. That's why we adopted this tonight. So what I would advise is we'll go ahead and adopt this tonight, but if y'all want to look further into specific issues and want to adopt further special rules, y'all can make a motion.
And I think that's a valid point. I think it's worthy to look in when the chairman should vote or shouldn't vote. I think when it's, I think when there's an acting chairman, and there's been times this year that I've not been able to attend for one reason or another, I don't think somebody loses their vote by standing in as acting chairman. And I'm not going to propose that tonight, but I'm going to further research this issue and see, and come up with a proposal regarding the chair's responsibility on these matters, so that we're clarified.
And a tie vote is a fail.
The tie
It's
vote
not
is-
as an approval.
Right, did
Yeah,
not
I mean,
pass.
a majority is defined as 50% plus 1, basically, so more than greater.
But with 6 present and you have a 3-3
You're gonna have
vote,
that, you're gonna
then
have 4 votes to approve.
then it fails.
Okay.
We're required to be 6. I mean, if you had 5 and one was the chairman, you had 4 members, and there was a vote.
You could have you could possibly have a 2-2 tie, and then the chairman would elect to vote to break a tie.
Well, but I think what Cody's saying is because we're a small board, the chairman can vote no matter what.
Well, that's true as well.
Right,
under
he
the
always
Robert's
could, but we just had chosen earlier that by custom, he would not. But he has always been able to vote if he so chose.
Okay.
So we're good on that?
Yes.
All right. Well, we had a discussion. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries, and we'll form that into a formal resolution. All right, number 7 on the agenda is the approval or denial of the minutes and written decisions of the August 9th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion on that?
Motion to approve?
Mr. Schexnayder made the motion, second by Mr. Dumas. Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, number 8 is the consent agenda. 8A has been pulled from the agenda for this evening. I'm going to go by these individually for reasons that will become apparent. 8B, an affidavit of mortgage declaration for William Chapman, Lot 37A, 18771 Oak Grove Parkway, Prairieville, Louisiana. Do I have a motion on that consent item?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
it's our understanding we received communication from the applicant on that project, and they've asked for it to be pulled from the agenda tonight. We're sorry we didn't get that to you in time.
We'll pull that from the agenda. Then C is affidavit of mortgage declaration for the Larry Ford Jr. property, Lot 7B, 13432 LeBlanc Road, Gonzales, Louisiana. Do I have a motion on that consent item?
Move.
Motion by Mr. Dumas, second.
Second.
By Mr. Furman. Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries on that consent item. Consent item D, affidavit of mortgage declaration for Old Kings Place subdivision, Lot 4A1, Sarah and Tate J. Touye, 40307 Black Bayou Extension, Gonzales, Louisiana, and Lot 4B1, J.C. Lim Simpson, Wagaspack, 40315 Black Bayou Extension, Gonzales, Louisiana.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
by legal's recommendations, I need to recuse myself from this vote.
All right, let the record reflect that Mr. Schexnayder is not a voting member on this vote. Do I have a motion on this consent agenda by Mr. Christie?
Second?
Second by Mr. Dumas. Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, item number 9, public hearing to approve or deny the following family partition. 9A Victorine B. Severio property, lots GF1A and GF1B. Earls and Associates. Chair recognizes Mr. Falgood.
James Falco representing Earls and Associates and Miss Alice Graham on the following family partition, asking the commission for approval.
Staff?
The property division meets the requirement of family partition section of the ordinance, and all items have been addressed. There was only one typo that needed to be fixed, and that has been corrected.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Has anyone signed up to speak on this matter? Is anyone here to speak on this matter or any other matter? I would say if you're here to speak on anything, you need to get a card from the podium and sign in and give that to Miss Stacy so that we can recognize you. Sir, come forward if you're here to speak on this matter. Okay. Yes, please do that. All right. No one here to speak on that, on this matter. We will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Christie, second by Mr. Furman. Discussion. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 10, 10A, or item number 10 is a public hearing to approve or deny the following subdivision final plat, 10A, Hexion Inc. property revision by Baton Rouge Land Surveying. And if you're here for that, you don't need to sign the card. It's only for the public comment section.
I'm here for that. I'm representing Hexion Inc. I'm their local counsel. This is a...
Could you identify yourself, sir?
Sure. My name is Robert Mouton. I'm with the law firm of Lock Lord. My address is 25 Swan Street in Woolens, Louisiana, 70124. This is a unique re-subdivision. There's no construction plan, no building permits. This is simply to allow Hexion to finance a portion of their facility. This specific parcel that's being carved out of Lot 3A, 1A, holds their formaldehyde plant, and they intend to finance that piece of equipment and land separate from the rest of their facility.
That's the entire formaldehyde unit?
Exactly. That is exactly correct. And I believe there were a few comments that were addressed by the surveyor, Jerry Middleton. Other than that, I'm not aware of any opposition.
Staff?
Yes, all the comments have been addressed. The applicant is asking, the reason it's before you is because the applicant is revising a plat, asking for subdivision not along a public right-of-way, similar to what we did with the Line Copolymer project a month or two ago. It has servitudes of access that make the site accessible, and the applicants and surrounding property owners maintain all of their roadways and rights-of-way and servitudes.
We'll open a public hearing on this matter. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak? No one has signed up to speak, therefore we'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I guess, just make sure your motion, I'm seeing on this packet that they're requesting a waiver of the lot frontage. So just
Right.
make sure you grant the waiver in your
Put
motion.
it in my motion, approve with waiver.
All right. Motion by Mr. Furman, second by Mr. Chasson. Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 11, old business. Site plan approval to lapse without final approval or extension granted for 10 or 11 1A1 Family Court Mobile Home Park expansion, which was approved on March 18th, 2017. Staff, you want to up to speed on what this agenda item is, please?
The code requires that the final plat be approved, which means that all construction needs to be completed or the approval will elapse unless an extension is granted to the applicant, and that's what they're here for. They're here to give you an update and to request an extension for their approval.
Mr. Kluat. Or,
Brian,
if you're not here to speak, well, I'm sorry, I was, yes, sir, go ahead.
Brian Aguilar, BM Aguilar and Associates. We're asking for the extension, like staff said, the way the code reads, I believe it gives a 6-month period from preliminary plat approval to the completion of construction. That's a pretty short time these days when all the regulations are pretty much for the same as a regular subdivision. I don't know if the code needs to be changed to, give us a little more time, but we're still in the process of getting a DHH permit. The construction plans have been submitted to the Parish Engineering Review Agency. Nothing's changed, basically, from what has been preliminarily approved. We just need an extension on that time period to get the final plans approved and actually do the construction. And we're asking for that extension of I guess, another 6 months or a year, whatever,
Another 6 months?
at least. Yes, sir.
I guess, Mr. Aguilar, when this thing came up, there was a lot of issues with the surrounding property owner, and I had written some conditions of approval and actually asked that at least some of these items, some items be done within 6 months. Some of them don't require a permit, fencing the property, or planting some vegetation to generate a buffer doesn't take a whole lot of time. It doesn't cost a whole lot of money. It doesn't require any permits. I don't mind. I can appreciate how difficult it is to get a permit these days from DHH in Ascension Parish, given the conditions of the river. But I'd like to see some improvements, done to the perimeter of the property anyway. And I think that that's reasonable. I don't mind giving you a 6 months extension, provided that in 90 days you get the fencing and the landscaping done. But I need some, the place, with all due respect, looks pretty dismal.
Yeah, I traveled out there today and took quite a few pictures, and I was kind of surprised at what the plot and what your preliminary plan is showing and the state of the subdivision as it is now. And I was kind of surprised that not more has even taken place.
Well, from my understanding with the fence, and I'm pretty sure it was 6 months after the approval, after we get the final approval of the construction drawings, after our final meeting, was when we had to start that.
No, it's within 6 months of this approval. Just what the motion says, the approval that you received 6 months ago.
I apologize. I was under the understanding, because
No.
doing construction jobs before, a
No, we
fence
don't.
would usually be the last thing you'd put up, not the first thing to work around, especially if you're doing dirt work.
Yeah, but most of the stuff that you're going to be doing from your access road, because you can't use that lateral street. You don't own that street. But the point is that, you're only required to fence 2 parts of the property anyway.
I'm only required to actually fence, get right behind it, and
The
just.
south perimeter. The
Well,
south-
technically, I'm required just to fence behind the southern perimeter and the eastern perimeter of the addition.
No.
No,
This
no,
is the
I'm
entire
saying, I'm
property.
agreeing with you, Mr. Julio. What I'm saying is that's what I'm required to do. What we were agreed to do was to do the whole thing to make amends with the subdivision.
I don't want to mince words, but the condition of approval supersedes that, and the condition of
Okay.
approval says you have to do it all.
Yes, sir.
So, and again, I can appreciate the DHH issue. I can well appreciate the fact that you need another 6 months. But I think that we need to recognize the adjacent property owners, and, we were looking for some improvements within these past 6 months. And I don't mind, and I think you're entitled to an extension, but I need to see some improvements. And the perimeter fence and the landscaping, it's not an undue burden, and I don't mind giving you 6 months extension, but I need to see that done within 90 days, or, your 6 months extension is null and void, and then you don't have an approval. Because the approval, if you didn't get an extension, your approval would die on September 18th. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
So, I don't mind working with you, but I need you to work with us as well. I need you to work with the parish as well. So I don't know if you're ready for a motion, but, I'm willing to make a motion that, we grant him a 6 months extension, provided that within 90 days, at least items A, B, and C of the original conditions of approval are complied with within 90 days. If he fails to do that in 90 days, then the extension is null and void.
Mr. Dumas, can I ask you something?
Sure.
Is that, because I'll tell you, one thing that we're having is, it's no secret, I've owner financed the place, so a bank will not take a second on an owner finance deal. So this will all be a cash project, which we can start the fence and what have you. But are we saying that this place has to be completed in 6 months from, and is that 6 months from today, or is that 6 months from when we have our full meeting? Because
What's going to happen, what I'm.
I just don't want to have to keep coming up in 6 months and you're deaf,
And
so.
you may have to come back in 6
Okay.
months, because the code says 6 months.
Okay.
So what I'm saying to you is that you're going to walk out of here, or at least if my motion gets approved, what I'm suggesting is that we're going to restart your clock. You're going to have another 6 months, provided that in 90 days, at least items A, B, and C of the conditions of approval are completed, and the parish can inspect it. If not, on the 91st day, this extension will become null and void, and you will have no approval. Your approval will have lapsed.
So, Mr. Dumas, do we have a specific list of those 3 items?
Yeah, it's in the
Well,
conditions of approval. that
we have a motion on the floor. We need a second for that motion to proceed.
Give me a moment.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Dumas, a second by Mr. Christie. Now we can have a discussion of the motion.
At the prior meeting in March, the conditions A, B, and C said that he's going to construct a 6-foot-tall solid wood fence with a natural finish along the entire south and east perimeter of the property. The fence had to be constructed with a good side on the exterior side, and that he had to plant one 14-foot-tall flowering tree along the south and east property line every 20 feet on center, except where there's existing significant native vegetation.
That's
Those are
on
the
the
3.
outside of the fence.
Right, on the outside of the fence. And those conditions were because on that side of the property, there are some single-family homes. On the other side of the property is another mobile home park. It seemed reasonable to provide a buffer there.
Gotcha.
He's got other conditions of approval that he has to do, which, he can have the full 6 months for.
Is that A, B, and C, or is that just A and B?
That's just A, B, and C.
And also, the parish just came out, I'd say in the last month, maybe last month and a half. I think Banana LeBlanc's his name. I don't know his legal name, but with the parish, and they are doing inspections of all mobile homes. And so he met with my manager, and we should have a report of any violations, if any, which I know several folks that own parks too. They've evidently cracking down and going to all of them. So.
Well, Mr. Kluwat, they do have about 9 gutted trailers on the property.
Yes, sir, they do.
Are those just for storage purposes, or?
No, those are actually homes that I got after the flood, and those are homes that we are redoing. There's actually, right now, and what we're doing is we're gonna rebuild those when they go onto the new spots that are coming. So we had an opportunity where we were pretty much gifted those trailers for taking them off of people's lots. So we're in them for $3,500, and then we send a team in there and we can rebuild them and be in them for $15,000. So.
But they'll be, if the fence is up, they'll be out of sight, basically.
Yes, sir.
At least from the single
Yeah.
family
Well,
homes.
they're ultimately located
Yeah,
within
and
his
they're not-
property. But what I think he's saying is his plan is to use those homes in this, in the lower, I guess, almost southwestern section of your property.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, no, I'm at max capacity, so I have nowhere else to go but on those new lots. But they are not, just so you know, Ms. Pryor, they're not permanent, they're not fixed. They're literally just staged there, and they were gutted, and we've got some sheet work going on in some of them, so.
And I think the whole tenor is, you have issues that you can't control with DHH or whoever. The fence you can control, you can put that up. That's not it,
Right.
theoretically. And that's, I think, what Julio's motion is for. On the other issues, you need time because that's the way it works. But doing a fence is not a time
Right.
Doesn't require DHH to come in and build it. So
Yeah.
I think that's the whole twist, is give them the opportunity to complete their project, but see some results from it.
Gotcha.
No, staff will have to go out there in 90 days and inspect it.
See, I was under the understanding, and I guess the reasoning for that is because that plat, we have that fence on that plat plan, but that plat plan is not approved yet. So I thought that's kind of why I was thinking from the 6 months from when we finally
Well, it was
stamped
a
it and said, let's
preliminary
go.
plat that we approved.
Yeah,
So-
we approved the preliminary plat, and the fence was on there, but
Okay.
but by condition, we put that timeline on it.
All right.
So now you have 90 days, just to be clear,
Yeah.
90 days to do A, B, and C.
From today or from tomorrow, I guess, would be the
Right.
start date.
You got your start dates, it's the 14th of September.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Hopefully, we won't see you back in 6 months.
Thank you,
Because you
gentlemen.
got it all
Appreciate
done,
you.
but
Yeah.
if we need to, we need to. All right, item number 12A is the master plan use proposal update, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Fournier at this point to talk about that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff has been working on a request for proposal, request for qualifications for authorized firms to be able to do this type of work for the parish. We have also reviewed previous studies and previous work that was done in the past on a similar effort by the parish back in 2009, 2010. We've also met with a couple of firms, talked about some of the work that's been done in the city of Gonzales, which recently went through a land use plan update along with a zoning plan update. So we're prepared to hopefully release the RFQ, RFP within the next couple of weeks to the public. We're required by state law to go out to a public review process. We have to pick the most qualified firm to do the work. The choice is not made by price, but qualifications. And so we'll be working through that with the administration, all right, and through the purchasing department. So I'm free to answer any questions you might have regarding this situation.
All right, and I'll just say this, I've been involved in some of those meetings for the master plan. It's very encouraging. This is my first time being involved very in-depth in it, and it's very encouraging to hear the ideas that are being bandied about for a master plan. I think it's something that is desperately needed to be updated, not just this year, but then as we continue to proceed every 3 to 5 years, and we should not let it lapse another 8 or 9 years like the last one has before we update that.
I might add that as the commissioners know, the parish has gone out for a master transportation plan, and they have also recently entered into a contract with an engineering firm to do a floodplain management plan. Part of the process that we're going to be doing is looking at a firm who can possibly and hopefully and will orchestrate the merging of all those plans, put them together into a master plan for the parish. And that's our ultimate goal for this process.
Thank you, Mr. Fournier. We'll keep updates on that. And once once the company is selected, I'd like them here at every meeting as the master plan unfolds, because ultimately it's us who proposes it to the council.
Absolutely.
Okay. What's that?
We adopted.
We adopted, yes.
Yeah.
All right, any
Chairman.
questions on that? Yes, Mr. Schexnayder.
Mr. Fournier, do we have an approximate timeline on that? Or maybe I just didn't hear you.
The timeline for actually getting out the RFQ, I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks we can get the RFQ out on the street. I'm working with administration and with the purchasing department. It has to go through them. We have to get the necessary approvals to get it out on the street. I would anticipate response within maybe 4 to 6 weeks after it's on the street to get responses and look through those. With that timeline, I would say towards the end of the year, we'd probably have a firm selected to do the work.
November, December type of thing.
Yeah, very likely.
All right, item number 12B is the Planning Commissioner training set for September 30th. You want to address that, Mr. Fournier?
Yes, we made arrangements, the Capital Region Planning Commission, to have the training here in Ascension Parish. It will be at the Administration Building, beginning at 8 o'clock on September 30th. That's a Saturday morning. And commissioners who have not been through the training process are required to do it within a year of being appointed to the commission. I know, I think everyone in the commission here has been through the process. The appeals board, now that the parish council is acting as the appeals board, they're required to go through the training as well, and they will be attending this session. We have also invited planning commissioners from Sorrento, from the city of Gonzales, Donaldsonville, and the surrounding Capital Region Planning Commission area. All right, so we're pleased to host them this year, or this particular time, in Ascension Parish.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, engineer and staff report.
Excuse me, we do not have a report for tonight.
You know, there's an LSU home game that day.
All right, I have a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Christie. All right, we'll take a short recess and come back for zoning. The zoning meeting, there's only one agenda item on the zoning agenda tonight. We need a short recess to reset the TV. Meeting's adjourned.